finally got revenge they were after from the defeat to the same team who were known as the Combined Nations. George Williams actually turned up for once on his club turf. Let's hope he does that for the rest of the Super League season. Wardle's the second Giants player to have scored a try in this fixture. Who's the first? No, the quiz.
McGilvery. Did McGilvery score last year for the Combies?
He did, yeah. The quiz started early. And of course, Wigan's John Bateman finished it off for England. Bateman was very good, I would say.
Yeah, Wardle, I felt like took his chance for his try. I can't remember too many other involvements that Wardle had, so I can't judge him one way or another hugely from an
he took his try
level.
well. He had half a chance that he couldn't take, but yeah, probably a Knights player, isn't he? Let's be honest. At this stage, and a player that could may be developing for the next World Cup potentially.
He didn't do himself any harm though. I don't think here with getting the try, doing his job, doing what he needed to do. I don't think he had any serious errors in his game that I can remember either. Like I say, it felt like he was relatively quiet, but he got a try. But yeah, John Bateman, you said John Bateman was impressive. It's led to some talk about where's his best position again. I still think his best position is second row, but at loose forward in this game, he certainly had an influence, didn't he?
Yes. Well, he's just got to be in there. He's just got to be in the back row, really. I don't really care where you play him because he can do the things that he was doing in this game from anywhere.
That's it. He's the kind of player who'll stand up and go and take a carry that isn't necessarily supposed to be his carry, but if he thinks his team need that impetus or whatever, he'll go and grab the ball and do something and make something happen.
Which he did, and I think the Williams try from the Bateman break was the best moment of the match for me. Yeah.
Agreed. Esther said, we did quite good but need to get lots better. Think Marshall in place of Hall and anyone instead of Watkins. Williams was better than with Wire. Hope he is back to turn next week. That's because Hull are playing Wire, isn't it? She said, think All-Stars were missing too many good players but tried hard. Yeah, actually, kind of makes a point there, doesn't she? And we need to maybe talk a bit about that. Certainly in terms of the calibre of the opposition England were up against in this game. They didn't throw much attack for England to defend, did they? And possibly you can say they were out without some of the players who might have been their better options. Although Brodie Croft was always going to be in, I think. But there was no Pearce, was there? That could have been an option. There was no Leno because he was suspended. There was no Jay Field at fullback or Tuilola here at fullback, who were the two front runners for the Man of Steel as that goes dark. So. But forward pack wise, very strong, weren't they? And it was a forward pack who all had things to be playing for, because a lot of them are playing for places potentially as back end of international squads. There's none of them players that are completely ruled out of the World Cup, really, apart from maybe someone like Fafita who's a bit old and Kenny Edwards. But there was other players in there who Satai and the likes. They can't be ruled out of Samoa's selection at the moment.
No, they were probably more impressive in the forwards. I think in terms of limited kind of things being thrown at England, I think that's just a function of the team, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're together for a week. So all you can do is basic kind of cut out passes or kind of inside balls. It's going to be kind of rugby league coaching 101, isn't it?
Yeah, you're relying on individual skill to create anything.
Exactly.
Really.
And to be fair, I thought Croft was very good and almost did on multiple occasions. For me, he was their best player.
It gave England a chance to sort of show their scrambling defence at least, didn't it?
Yeah.
But against teams that are a bit more... No international team is fully used to playing with each other because they're all coming to these things a bit disjointed. But say 3 or 4 weeks into the World Cup, there'll be teams that'll take those chances where the break's been stopped, but they get to reload and go again. Whereas
Exactly.
the Combies didn't take those chances because England's defence was drilled better than they were as an attacking unit.
exactly. I mean, I would expect probably, like, for example, when New Zealand play Leeds, when they arrive, they'll probably play quite similar to how the Combies played in this game.
Yeah.
Because it's their first hit out. It's their kind of kind of settling in. And then, as you say, through the weeks, through the kind of training sessions, you start to build those bonds. So, yeah, it was fairly vanilla in terms of the kind of stuff that you saw from the Combies, but you can't expect anything else, really.
No.
Where are we?
Mark W.
Matt Dewey says, I tried to be optimistic about rugby league, but honestly, I found it so hard to be enthusiastic about this game. It was my first England game in 6 years. I saw a debut try for an academy graduate from my club, but I struggled to care. There's a place for international games like the Combies, but only as part of a bigger international calendar. This can't be the entire England experience before a World Cup. Can't disagree with
Fiji,
any of that.
Haven't we, in 10 days before the World Cup, so...
That's positive. That's positive, but it's also positive for Fiji. Going back to my point about why we could have been playing France in this match. England and Fiji will benefit from that match. So yeah, that would always be my preference.
Matt Speakman said, "While I am pleased for Sean Wayne, I think I think his World Cup squad will be different to this one. It all felt a little flat. Maybe he was using it as an early look at some players, which is useful, but would he have got more out of picking 36 players and playing an A versus B match? I don't know really what the All-Stars were playing for. It's the reason the NRL All-Stars was such a short-lived concept and replaced with the Indigenous All-Stars game." And Paul Mac _78 said, "Far from impressive, but England did enough to get the job done. Cruz Leeming has to come in. He was the best hooker of the four on the pitch. As for the fixture itself, I think it should go from combined nations to just the South Pacific Islanders. Reckon there will be more passion than this glorified trial. Or fuck it, just play France in the summer sun in Albi." Yeah, again, more about the concept, more about the things there. Interesting point that Matt says about could we have just had an A versus B. I think what we did see, and it's kind of where Paul comes in with Cruz, is we saw 4 hookers that were England potentials, didn't we? That was one of the interesting conundrums of how this was selected, and Matt Parcell was left out because of Sean Wayne wanting Ellery Hanley to play the 2 England hookers, so that he got to see 4 England hookers because he doesn't know what he's going to do in that position.
And there's an argument that the players who were not in an England shirt were both better than the ones.
I think they were good in certain ways. They were better they did more with the ball. I think they were both quite probing. And if they'd have had relationships with the halfbacks they were playing with, it would have been even more potential. Definitely, I agree. Yeah.
Mm. But yeah, as I said earlier, I think Leeming's his smarts understanding the short side and switching the play was probably one of the best pieces of attacking play that you saw in it, other than the Bateman break, really. So
yeah, it was clever, wasn't it? And
he's definitely put his name in the conversation. Definitely.
I think he should have already been in the conversation. I'm a bit unsure why he. I don't know what Paul McShane has done in the last 18 months to be in this England side ahead of Cruz Leeming, what Cruz Leeming's done. So Paul McShane's in there because he was Man of Steel in 2020, not because of anything he's done since, in my eyes. And I also don't understand that McIlorum's done enough to get himself back into this. I'd much rather see him playing for Ireland.
Do you think Leeming suffers from a crisis of identity because of his kind of the work he's having to do at Leeds?
Because he's having to play so much 7 at Leeds. Because he's having to kind of fill in and cope with their issues. That's will lead to questions about his ability to be. I mean, it gives you flexibility in the squad, doesn't it? And another thing is, people always talk about the impact Dwyer makes when he comes off the bench, doesn't he? Which kind of makes people question what impact Leeming was having, I suppose. And maybe with him you need someone else as well. You'd need Darryl Clark to be fit and firing and stronger than he was in this game, for example, even though he's had a few decent darts.
It's always easy to and I fall into this trap as well, in looking at the flashy 9 that comes on.
Yeah.
Because the 9 who's been on since the start has been doing a load of the grubby stuff that you don't necessarily notice. So yeah, it's very easy to have your head turned by a flashier 9 who, has a bit of pace. Because often you'll see this case made quite often, and when they are swapped around, it doesn't work in that way, because they can't. The advantages of pace, etc., against a tiring line aren't there in the first, second, third minute. So yeah, it makes them, the change of pace that they offer can only be done at the time that it's done.
Yeah,
I would say.
I think if Roby doesn't come out of retirement, personally, Leeming and Clark, if they can get their form up, well, Leeming's form's quite good. I think if Clark can get his form up, that would be a better combination to go with. But I really think Sean Wayne's going to go with McIlroy after this match.
Yes, that would be a shame. But yeah, I mean, the only other thing I've got to say is that has anyone on the outer forced their way into the 17? My answer to that question is probably not.
No, I'd certainly think that Lees and Aledzki were both given chances to stake their claim. I mean, all being well, everyone being fully fit, you'd expect Thomas Burgess, Luke Thompson to be in there with Alex Walmsley. It's just kind of like starting middles. You've also got to remember that you've got Sutton down under as well, who's not having a poor season. He might not be a headline grabber as much, but he's got injured again, hasn't he, I think? But he seems to always get injured for the back end of the year, Ryan Sutton, so that's a problem there. But hopefully he overcomes that. So you've got there the core of your middles, along with Alex Walmsley, and so how many other middles will he carry when Morgan Knowles, you have to fancy, will be your 13? So would Aledzki and Lees both be in? I'd have Aledzki slightly ahead of Lees based on the performances, but I think both of them made themselves viable contenders. I think Cooper's not a viable contender now because of what I saw. He had a couple of sloppy drops. I didn't see him working much outside of that. I'm sure he did do stuff off the ball that wasn't seen, but I think from the stuff that was noticeable, I'm not saying he was bad. I'm saying the other two were better. The younger two were better.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough.
McMeekan was fine, but I don't know if he did enough to say put him over the top of, because you've got to remember you'll be bringing Elliot Whitehead into this side as well as Bateman, and I do think Liam Farrell did enough. I know it's obvious that I'm going to say that, but he had 150 metres in 50 minutes. He didn't make a mistake.
It's but when he's playing in a white kit, he doesn't half look ghost-like. But anyway, no, Farrell was Farrell was Farrell, and that's he's one of those inked-in names, like Walmsley, like Bateman, like Makinson.
Well, Wayne says he knows 3 of his starting side, and one of them Sam Tompkins.
All right, okay.
So, 3 of his side from Saturday are in what is marked out as starting side. Tompkins as the captain, as the goal kicker. I think he was decent as well, Tompkins. I don't think he was poor in this game. I think he was good. He was fine. I think you have to find space for Wellesby somewhere. If Lomax can play in the World Cup, you play him at 6 and Williams at 7 and Wellesby in the centres. I think you've got to find a space for him somewhere.
See, my certainties includes Walmsley, it includes Bateman, and it includes Makinson.
Yes, yeah,
they're certain
nailed on. I agree.
Yeah.
And Walmsley, of course, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, I think Bateman's a certainty in a match day 17 for Sean Wayne, but I don't know if he knows where he'll play him and who might partner him in the second row, that sort of thing. But I agree. I think he just likes to say. I think with some of his Wigan players, with some of the guys he knows, like Williams, like Bateman,